Naruto is one of the most important anime series in history. And that's not an exaggeration. This show shaped more than one generation, brought countless people into the world of anime, and created characters that people literally have tattooed on their bodies. Naruto was a loud, obnoxious loser who couldn't do anything right, and somehow everybody loved him. That's called narrative talent. So, when Naruto Shippuden ended, we finally got the conclusion to that journey, and it felt perfect. Until someone decided it would be a great idea to ask what comes after a series like this, which honestly sounds more like how much money can we still squeeze out of this universe? And from those questions, an abomination was born. Boruto. Naruto Next Generations. Boruto. You either laugh or you cry, honestly. But alright, let's talk about this thing.
Let's start with the most basic thing possible. The name. You have one of the most recognizable franchises on the planet. A name that anyone in the world, even people who've never watched a single episode, has heard of. So you sit down with your creative team, take a deep breath, and make the big decision. What do we call the protagonist of this continuation? And the answer was, change the N to a B. Naruto, Boruto. Genius! Look, this isn't paying homage. This is the kind of thing you write in a first draft and forget to change. It's not that the name needs to be radically different, but if someone just smashed their face on a keyboard, they'd probably come up with something more creative. And you know what's worse? The name perfectly summarizes what the whole series is going to be, a slightly modified copy of the original. Changed one letter, that's it. Speaking of poor copies, let's talk about character design. The new Boruto characters are already strange on their own. They look like TikTok teenagers dressed up for a very weird fashion show. But that's still somewhat forgivable, because they're new characters. We had no attachment to them. The real problem is what they did to the characters we actually loved. Adult Naruto got a haircut that looks like he walked into a mall salon, sat down, and said, "Give me the most generic thing you've got." They actually managed to make a blonde kid with fox whiskers and an orange jumpsuit look completely forgettable. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because then there's Gaara. Gaara went from an iconic red-haired, dark-eyed, terrifying presence, a character that radiated pure menace, to this. Nobody asked for this. Nobody. And then there's Shino. They turned Shino into a walking toaster oven. And it's funny because even the characters who didn't change that much seem to have lost their spark. Kakashi is still there, but the guy has zero aura anymore. Boruto didn't just copy things badly, it also ruined the originals in the process. That takes a very specific and almost impressive kind of talent.
Now, let's get to the point that actually hurts. The entire emotional premise of Boruto is built around Naruto being an absent father. He became Hokage, he works too much, he has no time for his family. Boruto is sad, angry, desperate for his father's attention. Seems reasonable, right? It's not, because this man has infinite chakra. This man summoned 1,000 clones as a child. Each clone is a fully functional copy of him, capable of doing any task. So Naruto, the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, instead of creating a clone to stay in the office signing paperwork while he goes to his daughter's birthday party, sends a clone to the birthday party. He sent a clone to his daughter's birthday party. Himawari blew out her candles with a clone of her dad standing next to her. That's not an absent father. That's a father who actively chose to get it wrong. And here's the most absurd part. This is literally the solution to the entire drama of the series. If Naruto just used Shadow Clone Jutsu with a bit more common sense, Boruto would have no plot. The entire premise collapses because of a jutsu he learns in episode 1 of the original anime. But there's an even more serious point here. Naruto spent 700 episodes being the character who understood people better than anyone. That's what defined him. He put himself in the shoes of villains who wanted to destroy the world. He never gave up on Sasuke, even when Sasuke was actively trying to kill everyone. And now he can't understand his own son? The guy who convinced Pain to change his entire worldview with a speech can't have a conversation with a 12-year-old?
And honestly, I have to talk about this because it genuinely bothers me. For 700 episodes, Naruto's dream was to become Hokage. It was the most important thing in his life. It defined who he was. And that dream carried weight because we lived every single step with him. Every failure, every moment he almost gave up but didn't. So, when the moment finally arrives, the most important scene in the entire character's journey, what happens? The writers do something funny. They put Konohamaru in his place. Is that hilarious? No! Who approved this? Who on earth looked at this script and said, yeah, this is perfect? I refuse to believe anyone who actually watched Naruto could read that scene and think it was a good idea. Imagine if it had been done right. Naruto walking up to that stage, looking out at the crowd, thinking about Iruka, about Jiraiya who never got to see this moment, about everyone who believed in him. Grown adults would have been sobbing. It would have been legendary. And honestly, it was the easiest scene in the world to get right. 700 episodes of build-up did all the work for them. Simple, done well, easily a top 10 most emotional moments in anime history. But no, instead, they took the most important moment of that journey and threw it in the trash with a joke that wasn't even funny.
It's extremely frustrating. But anyway, let's move on to another weak point of Boruto. Look, I get the idea. You want to show the world moved on. Families grew. Kids carry a bit of their parents with them. Fine, that makes narrative sense. And when it works, it's great. Look at Shikaku, Shikamaru's father. You look at him and immediately think, clearly same family, same lazy posture, same way of looking at the world, same features. But Shikaku has a scar, has a goatee, has his own presence. You feel like he's a real person. And Shikamaru inherited what made sense to inherit, the intelligence, the fighting style, the philosophy, but he has his own personality. They're distinct characters who belong to the same family. That's done with care. Now, look at Boruto's cast. They're so generic, so lacking in identity, that the whole thing feels less like an official continuation and more like really bad fanfiction. It's like the entire cast was ordered off Wish.com. You recognize the product, but something clearly went very wrong in production. The most absurd example of this is Mitsuki, son of Orochimaru. Orochimaru, the guy who experimented on children, swapped bodies to live forever, who was unsettling in every single inch of his design. That man has a son, and the son is generic, a pretty bland little boy. How do you take the most eccentric character in the series and produce that? And to close with the cherry on top, Sarada, daughter of Sasuke and Sakura. Sarada. They literally just mashed half of each parent's name together and called it creativity. Sakura, Sasuke, Sarada. Good lord. But it actually gets worse. You had Rock Lee and now his son is Metal Lee. I genuinely don't know what to say about that. And every story needs villains, and I'll just say it straight, the Otsutsuki completely destroy the essence of Naruto. Naruto worked because it was a ninja world, a brutal one, where entire clans were massacred for political reasons, where children were raised to be weapons, where peace came at a cost of blood. And within that world, the stories made sense. Ninjas fighting ninjas, ideologies clashing, human conflicts with real weight. Then comes Kaguya Otsutsuki, an alien, an interdimensional goddess who absorbs chakra. That was definitely not Kishimoto's most creative phase, and it was a deeply frustrating ending. So given that they learned from that mistake and were building a brand new story from scratch with plenty of time, they wouldn't go down that same road again, right? Wrong. Boruto's special talent is failing. Its villains are the same aliens we already didn't like the first time around. Why? You know what would have been interesting?
the ninja world itself becoming the problem again, because that's how the real world works. We never learn, conflicts come back, peace is fragile. There's so much more to say about the human condition than about generic aliens with no personality. Madara was a human villain with a coherent philosophy, even if it was wrong. Pain had a real tragedy behind him. There's actually a video on the channel about him. Same with Itachi, who also has a video and is one of the most complex stories in anime. But honestly, that's on me. Expecting a villain on that level from a series that couldn't even be creative with the title was a failure of my own expectations, not theirs. So in Boruto, we have the Otsutsuki, who are powerful. That's their only characteristic. They're very powerful. Congratulations. And here we arrive at the most transparently manipulative point in the series. Boruto needs to be relevant, but his father is the strongest ninja in the world, and Sasuke is basically second. So what do? Simple. Weaken the adults in ways that make absolutely no sense. Naruto losing Kurama, fine, that was an impactful scene. It carried weight. But Sasuke losing his Rinnegan? He loses it because a child hits him in the eye with a kunai. A kunai. Sasuke, the man with the Sharingan, the man who has been fighting since he was 7 years old, the man who survived things that would turn any normal person to dust. I came up with a better solution in 5 seconds. The enemy drains his chakra in a way that the eye can no longer sustain itself. That's it. Not brilliant, but infinitely more dignified than a random kunai. Sasuke could have used Susanoo to protect himself. He could have swapped places with something, but the script needed him to lose, so he just didn't use any of it. That's not storytelling. That's the writer reaching into the story and physically pushing the character to the ground so someone else can look important.
You know what's the saddest part of all this? The first scene of Boruto is incredible. You see the teenage protagonist standing on top of the Hokage monument, the village destroyed around him, facing a villain. Boruto's design is actually badass in that moment, and you think, wow, this kid is going to honor his father's legacy. Something massive happened, and he's still standing. He's the last hope. That's genuinely awesome. The promise was there, the potential was there. And then the actual anime starts, and you discover that Boruto is arrogant, spoiled, has no clear goal, and the series is going to spend the next 166 filler episodes, yes, 166, I did not make that number up, before getting to anything remotely relevant. Boruto failed because it didn't understand what made Naruto work, and because it didn't understand that a sequel was never actually necessary. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you probably also carry Boruto trauma, and I'm truly sorry about that. See you in the next video, which will be about literally anything other than Boruto, because I need a break.